Thanks so much for checking out this video, sitting down with Kirk, the gamer from What's New Video Games. Check out his link below so we can discuss and give you a review of Banishers Ghosts of Neweden. Now, I was going to do a first impressions video because I'm not done with the game. Actually, Kirk's not done either, but he's a lot further in the game than me. So we wanted to give you sort of a combined review, giving our thoughts on the game. If you like the content, hit subscribe, hit the bell button, and hit that like button as well. We will be interacting with the live chat as we show you some gameplay as well as just break down everything that we think about this game. We did receive review codes for this game, so thank you for those codes that we got. We need to say that at the outset. I'm going to end the previous stream. We were talking about Phil Spencer. What's he going to say? When's he going to say it? If you want to see my thoughts on that, you can go. And then at the tail end, Kirk's there too, and he gives his thoughts. But this is going to be about this game, Banishers, that I kind of had my eyes on this whenever they first started doing trailers. It looked really interesting as an idea and as a theme. Of you've got, you know, one person's alive, one person's dead. You can kind of do things together. It's very different than what I expected. I will say that. There's a lot more to this game than I initially thought. And so I'm just going to switch scenes and just give them sort of just a basic look at the game while you just give me, before we get into graphics and performance and gameplay and story and sound design and all of that, we're going to try and break down. Yeah, we're going to try just high level. What are your first impressions of this game after, you know, after spending, like you said, you know, close to 20 hours in it? I believe completion time of the mainline story is about 20 to 25 hours. So, yeah, first impressions before we break all the systems down.
And I'm surprised by that because it does say 20 to 25 in the review guide that we got, but I'm like 18 and it feels like I'm like halfway through this game. And the map is like massive. And I've just gotten to a point where you have your first major boss fight. You have a big decision to make after that, purportedly at least. We'll see what the ramifications are of that. And then the map just completely opens up. Like, it's kind of like that Elden Ring moment where you're like, oh, okay. And so at this point, like, I'm just supposed to get from point A to point B across the entire map. And it feels like this is like a midway point type of thing. And like I said, I'm like 18 hours in. But also, anytime there's like something on the map, like I'm going and trying to find it. So I don't know, but the thing that I want to say to that end is like, it seems like there's a lot of game here, especially for a AA game. In the first like 1 to 2 hours, I was like, I don't know about this. And it'll be interesting to get your thought on this. But in my opinion, I think the whole first hour probably could have been cut. It just dragged on a little long and it didn't really give me the setup that I really needed. I don't think like it's kind of like you're not really investing in these characters until like hour 3, 4, or 5 anyway. So I don't know that the first hour did a lot other than kind of make me doubt if I should be playing the game. So I hope there's not a lot of people that quit after that first hour. But this is one of those games where like the longer that you play it, like when you get to like hour 5, 6, 7, 8, you're like, oh, this is getting its hooks in me, man. Like you said, like you were just gonna check it out to give your first impressions, and then you just kept playing it. And there's a reason for that. Like it something about it sort of gets you to, it's like that cyclical thing when you're in a game where you're like, oh, I want to do one more quest. I want to find one more location or fight one more boss. And it's like, that's when you know that a game has its hooks in you if it grabs you like that.
Right. I want to touch on the beginning before we start breaking down the systems. The beginning was really slow, but what I think what it does is it sets the tone. This is actually a far more story and character-driven game than I expected.
That's Don't Nod's thing, for sure.
Yeah, it's very, very dialogue-heavy, which I kind of found surprising. Like, you're doing a lot of sit-downs, a lot of investigation, and what I found interesting is the actual dialogue was giving me intel that I then used to, like, I was using that in my, like, what I was going and looking for. So it was actually worth talking to people.
It's not just like pointless dialogue interactions where it's like, I've been here for a while and whatever. You're like, why did I need to sit there and have that 5-minute conversation? Like that didn't, like, there's definitely games out there like that. Whereas like the conversations that you're having like directly influence and inform like what you're then going and doing. And it's like, I think a game like this that's narrative and that like has you sort of unraveling like mysteries and making deductions and stuff is very good when you can feel the wheels turning in your head as you're playing the game. of like, oh wait, oh my gosh, were they having an affair? And then, oh my gosh, did the guy murder her husband? Like that sort of thing. Like when you're like doing that in your head as you're playing it, I think that is a sign of good storytelling. And that's definitely at work here. Like you're basically doing these kind of like sub-story mystery things, and then like you said, like you're talking to the people, and those conversations are getting you information. You're almost sort of like a detective, but you're like this like inquisitor type character. Obviously it's called a banisher, that's why the game is so titled, but it's kind of your role to interact with these people. This is set in like colonial Puritan Northeast America, by the way. A lot of it's out in the woods.
I wanted to touch on that. Like they set up the fact that they're banishers in a really subtle way. Like I think there's a lot of cool. I loved the lore scene about banishers and what they are and what they do. I think that sets a cool tone of like you're doing something pretty serious, and then you're sort of like, oh, this is what we are as characters. Now people are asking what platforms did we play it on? I played on PS5. What did you play on?
I played it on Xbox Series X.
Okay, great. So we can touch on, performance that we had, how we felt. Let's sort of transition now. Let's maybe dive a little bit deeper. So like
we're all over the place.
We're all over the place with the big picture. So we'll give a little bit more structure now to what we want to say. I want to first talk about graphics and performance, and I'm going to just quickly go first. I think graphically the game is gorgeous.
It's amazing.
The weakest part is the NPC's facial movement. Like their voice acting is stellar. It feels very much like The Witcher 3, where I'm sitting down and I'm having conversations with people. Yes. And the tone's awesome, but their faces are very mannequin, very wooden. My son walked in the room. He's like, they look like dolls. And I was like, yeah, he's kind of right.
Very pretty dolls, yeah. Like when they're not trying to emote, they look very good. And I will say, the main character in particular, in the like cutscenes that look like they might be pre-rendered, they could be in-engine, but like the cutscenes in this game, like when you can tell like you're watching a cinematic, they look so good. Like I don't know how many of those that you had that were like major story beats, but like when one of those comes up, you're like, wow, this looks insane. But yeah, like as long as the characters aren't emoting with their face, they look really, really good as models. But yeah, you can tell like this isn't mocapped probably, because they're not super great at raising an eyebrow or making a wry smile or something like that. That's not really coming through. And
the reason that I wouldn't say it as a criticism is because there is an insane amount of dialogue, and when a game does put that much dialogue in and that many instances for you to investigate and have these conversations, it's naturally going to use a lot of what I call automation. They're going to automate the voices and the faces together. So to me, what matters more is that the stories add a lot of depth and a lot of character. So that's probably my main gripe about graphics, is just the faces get a little wooden, but I don't think it detracts from the experience. Now, when it comes to performance, I am getting what I would consider to be pretty inconsistent 60 frames per second, and it's especially noticeable in an intense fight. I don't know if the day one patch is going to address that. They did say that, hey, there's a day one patch. It should resolve bugs that you're having. And I think some of it's because of the cinematic quality that they try to bring to the combat. Like it feels very momentous. There's these things that happen, and it can make for almost like these hitches and these halts that causes the frames to stutter quite a bit. And I'm on PS5. What did you experience any of that in the combat?
I will say, so the combat itself is so frenetic and chaotic that I think you're right. We probably are losing frames in combat, but I'm not really noticing it because my brain is working on double time with this combat. So I'm playing on hard, and I'm playing this kind of like a Souls. Because there are some Souls-like elements here. You literally rest at bonfires that you can level up at. It's like the only place that you can level up, and then like when you rest, your flasks come back. Like they're borrowing some Souls-like stuff here. But so I'm playing on hard for that reason, and it's like a dance. Like the combat here probably feels the most similar to like The Witcher 3, where you're just whirling around constantly. Half the time you don't even know like what you're doing. Like you're just spinning your blade and slashing into enemies and stuff. And then there's the mechanics that we can talk about later, where you're switching into your like ulterior persona, your companion. But the combat is so fast and chaotic that I'm not even really noticing the drop frames because my brain is just working to engage with the encounter and the enemies. But I think you're right. It's probably coming down to like 45, maybe, like as a huge benchmark there. Like obviously Digital Foundry is where our viewers should go eventually if they want to check out like the frame data and stuff before they're purchasing. But yeah, I don't think it's not going down to like 30 or anything crazy. But yeah, we're losing some frames in combat. And then the thing that I found the most detrimental to performance is actually, so we haven't talked about it yet, but this game bears a lot of similarities to God of War. It's like a AA version of God of War, the new ones, that is. And when I notice the most drop frames is when you're clearly like loading a new area, but you're not actually, like you're just going into a new space up map. And then because of that, like you can tell like the whole game just like chugs. It's only for like 2 seconds. And honestly, I would probably rather have that than like a black 2-second screen, you know? Like, so I like that it feels like this world is contiguous and I can just pass through it, you know, from one end of the map to the other. But yeah, when I'm about to go into a cave or I'm you know, going into a new area completely, I definitely notice like a lot of drop frames for about 2 seconds. And it's obviously just like a loading period. And that breaks the immersion a little bit. But again, something we haven't really hit on yet is like, this is AA as AA can be. Like, they are really reaching here as far as what their quality and fidelity and production value is here, and achieving as much as they possibly can with a much smaller outfit and a lot less resources.
I would agree with that. I would say in presentation, in scope, in size, someone in chat saying they put like 70 hours into this. Like, there's so much to do. They're hitting above their weight class.
Yep.
They are definitely hitting above their weight class. And I like to give studios like this their flowers. Like, this is a very, very good game. Yeah. And we're getting a question in chat from Christos. She says, is it narratively like Vampire? Or I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Okay, I'm so glad somebody brought that up because I didn't want to like go on a Vampire tangent and nobody know what I was talking about. So this is the successor to Vampire. This is the same studio and it has a lot of the same systems. You could consider this game like the Assassin's Creed Valhalla to Vampire being like Origins as an analogy. So it's kind of like that level of jump, that level of change in them sort of polishing the systems and stuff like that. Vampire had some very, very intriguing and interesting systems involving social relationships and social circles. And then also something that Vampire had was an entire system where the NPCs were actually like your XP farm. So like as a vampire, you had to determine if you were going to feed on and by that in turn kill certain NPCs, usually as a result of what their moral or ethical failings were. So like you would maybe feel worse about feeding on to strengthen your XP a, you know, axe murderer or something than like a nice old lady or something like that, just as an example. This game, I think, unfortunately, in my opinion, takes out that XP incentive because that was such an intriguing choice that you had to make in Vampire, of whether or not you're going to feed to get your XP, and then you take out somebody that's a member of this community. Now their social circle is impacted. This game still has that. It just doesn't have the XP carrot on the stick. It's more narrative consequences. So it's entirely founded on kind of the same systems of you're going through these subplots, which you, Lono, have experienced as well, where there's like a group of 2 or 3 individuals that are intricately tied to one another in some way, shape, or form. And then you figure out sort of what their story is, what their drama or trauma that's going on within that closely knit circle, and then you sort of have to bring that to resolution. And that's going to bring you to a choice where you're determining who's at fault, who's culpable, and are you going to basically pass judgment on them or forgive them. And the effect of that is that some things in the world will sort of change. The world state will change somewhat. You might run into those characters that you didn't pass judgment on, like the other 2 in the circle of 3 in another form. They might end up being a boss fight. they might end up being a vendor that now sells you everything for half price because they're very happy with you because you helped somebody in their social circle. So like having those narrative consequences is something that can be very like compelling and fulfilling in a game like this, especially for me. I really eat that type of stuff up. But yes, no, this game borrows and brings over a lot from Vampire. Like if there's any game that is similar to this, I would say this is almost exactly like Vampire in terms of systems. And then they just took those systems, they saw God of War 2018, and they were like, let's try and make that game. Let's try and make God of War 2018 as a successor to Vampire. We'll take all those systems over of interacting with those NPCs, those very intricate, narratively driven stories that you're sort of going through and figuring out, oh, what is this person's life circumstances? There's a lot of situations in both games where you're figuring out like, oh, these people have some secrets and a dark past and they've done some bad things, and like it really showcases the dark side of humanity and that people are fallible as humans. So there's like that sort of draw there of that you're judge, jury, and executioner, and most of these people, it's not easy. Like they have done bad things, so you're like, it'd be super easy if all these people were just nice people, right? You just be like, all right, I'm gonna help you and then leave. Like that's like what a lot of video games are.
Right.
This game forces you to think and grapple with, oh, it's being put in front of me. Like I have to confront the fact that this person has done something horrible. What am I gonna do about it as the person that has the power to do something about it? That is like a compelling narrative draw there.
Well, more than that, and this is when I talk to you about how it kind of reminds me a little bit of Detroit Become Human, where they say from the outset, you can completely change the outcome of this story depending on what you do, because as we know from the trailers, this is not a major spoiler, she's dead and she's your lover, and you can bring her back from the dead by ascending her, and your choices in the story can take you to the path of, we're going to have her ascend, but that means we got to kill people, or you can go the other way.
This is a nitpicky thing, but ascending would be the opposite. Ascending is like to basically let her pass on to heaven. I don't remember what bringing her back is called, but
I thought they called that ascending.
Ascending is like if you give somebody peace and send them to heaven. So there's three choices that you have in pretty much every subplot, every social scenario. You can either ascend the ghost that is haunting the person or people. You can banish the ghost, which would basically be like condemning them, like sending them to oblivion is what the game says. If you think that the ghost is culpable. So like, for instance, there was a situation of domestic abuse. I banished that ghost. I did not send that ghost to heaven because I was like, that's bad. You're a domestic abuser. I'm not vibing with that, bro. And I did my little banisher powers on him and sent him on his way. And then the third thing that you can do is called blaming, which what that actually means is that you lay all the culpability and responsibility for the haunting at the person who is alive's feet. And you say, they're haunting you because you're a bad person and because, you've left some unresolved issues for them. And so what I'm actually doing is I'm blaming you for the haunting. I'm not going to pass judgment on the ghost. I'm passing judgment on you. And what Red McWraith, who we haven't mentioned yet, who's a great protagonist, I think. He's a Scotsman. Mm-hmm. What Red will do is he will basically say, I'm passing judgment on you, the person who's alive. I'm actually going to, like, I guess, take your soul or whatever. And he does like this ritual thing. And then, he absorbs the essence of the person who's alive, who may or may not be a bad person. And then he can sort of he's building up that essence over the course of the game to give to his companion Antea. And yes, there is a like dark ritual that he can do to purportedly bring her back from the dead. The game has you like swear an oath very early on of like which one you're going to do. Are you going to help her ascend, which basically is, I would assume, leads to the good ending where you just have to go and get her body back from the main antagonist. And then once you link her back with her body, I guess she has closure and can move on. And then the other path would be bringing her back, which, Lono, I'm interested to know your thoughts on that, because they sort of set up this framework where she as a character is like very opposed to like letting ghosts do anything other than just like condemning them to oblivion, basically. And then as soon as she's dead, oh, it's very convenient that she's like, well, you could bring me back from the dead, actually.
Well,
like your whole ideological framework changes when it's you now. You know, I thought that was a very jarring thing that they did.
I thought they set it up, though, to where she wasn't fully in support of it, and neither was her. They leave it up to the player.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
They do leave it up to you to decide, which I thought was so cool that you and I could have very different experiences. Like, I'm out here blaming and burning people up because I want to bring my wife back, and you could be taking the banishing route of like, no, it's better to give ghosts peace, and it's better to, at the end, banish my wife and give her peace and free her up. I actually think the way they set up that opening antagonist was so villainous and scary. Like, I think they've just done such a good job with tone setting. It has remnants of like Plague Tale with like the environments, and everybody's sort of drab and sad and dying. The world and the characters, it's just really, really good. So I think
another one, that type of setting, that type of vibe.
The gameplay and the story are so interwoven, because even when you're done with like an area, right? Like, I'm just showing them some basic combat. I'm doing okay playing through OBS. I'm like watching a tiny screen, like trying to play, and I'm trying to showcase some of the combat. Even when you go and rest, they move the story along with you and your wife in a way that is so well done. Like, I start to really like them as like they're
good.
Yeah, you get more into their relationship, and there's good references to their history and when they were younger and stuff. It's so good. I will say, in the gameplay route, because I want to move on to some of the other stuff, but in the gameplay route, I will tell people it can feel a little clunky, and it can feel a little... There's awkward things that will happen. So as I was just showing people some gameplay, you guys might have noticed if I like kill a wolf, well, a ghost pops out of them. A lot of what you're fighting is something that's been possessed, and then you got to kill that ghost as well, or it's just going to go grab somebody else. Well, the combat needs to be a little bit tuned, because there's been numerous times I will kill a wolf, and the ghost pops out of them, and then the camera spins and locks on somebody else. Well, now I have a ghost right behind me. So there's been numerous times where the group fights can be a little awkward. It's like they're not necessarily like, I'm not like dying. It just feels like I'm fighting against some of the camera and some of the clunkiness. I like it when it's more, I think 1v1's awesome. Parry feels good. Single dodging seems to be more effective than the double tap roll. I found like...
I didn't even know there was a roll.
Yeah, you can double tap to roll. Well, single dodging is so effective. Like, it's very quick, it's very responsive. And I was rolling like a Dark Souls guy, and I was like, I found single dodging to be much more effective.
Do you think it's effective though when you get in a? Because we were DMing about this. Do you think it's effective when you get in a group of like 3 or 4 enemies? Because I can't dodge for the life of me in a group of 3 or 4 enemies.
I think that's where some of the clunkiness comes in. I do feel like there are times where he doesn't quite sprint when I want him to, or he doesn't quite dodge when I want him to. There is a lack of fluidity at times that's the most noticeable when you're in a group fight. And it can be frustrating because, again, I don't feel like I'm fighting against a challenge. I almost feel like I'm fighting with the game.
Well, Lono, that's because you're playing on normal.
Yeah, by the way, there are 6 difficulty settings in this game. So if you just are really interested in the vibe and the tone and the solving the mysteries, and you don't want the combat to be super hard, you can turn the difficulty way down, which I would encourage people to do if they just don't want to get... I got stuck on a fight earlier this morning. I was late to start the stream because I finally beat him. It was one where you had to do a lot of shooting. Like the guy, the ghost was going to shoot me if I didn't shoot him while I'm also fighting wolves. So they like to apply multiple points of pressure that you're managing. And it was a tough fight. But once I figured it out, I was like, I can't not get shot by this guy. I figured out like, oh, you got to shoot him first, and then you won't get shot.
It's like very close to the problem that Lords of the Fallen had last year, where you just get swarmed by enemies and it gets so frustrating. But it doesn't actually have that problem. So I'm playing on hard, and I would say that this game, for all of you like Souls-like buffs out there that really like that type of game, as long as you're on board for like a strong narrative story, in addition to that, this game is pretty cool as a Souls-like. It's a little more, it's a lot more similar to the God PlayStation, but and PC, I guess. But yeah, it makes for a good Souls-like as well. But so playing this game on hard and doing the combat, I was frustrated at first because you do kind of get mauled by enemies, and they do like sort of mob you. Like they're just throwing everything at you. You've got ranged attacks coming in. You've got the wolves running up and attacking you. At some point, though, Lono, I don't know if it's because I have more abilities. I think it's a combination of both. I have more abilities now, so the skill tree is pretty robust at this point. And you actually keep, I don't know if you're at this point, but you keep unlocking new tabs of skill tree. Like you start with one skill tree, and then now I've got like 4 different skill trees that I can tab through to like add to get different combat abilities at this point. But so once I had a lot of abilities and once I got acclimated to the combat itself, it's like I said, it's like a dance. Like it's stream of consciousness, man. I'm not even like consciously thinking about anything. I'm just doing. And the mechanic that we haven't really talked about where you can switch between him and her in combat, it allows you to just it's so fast and frenetic, and what you're essentially doing, in my estimation and in my experience, is like I'm just taking guys out before they have a chance to take me out. Like it's so, when you play this game aggressively in combat and you're like, look, if I hang back, I am going to get mauled. I'm not going to be able to block everybody. I'm not going to be able to dodge everybody. I'm going to have one guy over here, one guy over here, and one guy in front of me, and I'm just getting hit, and I'm going, oh, this is frustrating. I hate it. I figured out, like, if I'm just like charge attack, whoosh, doosh, and then it's like switching to the girl, and now I'm warping over here and punching on this guy. Oh, he's dead. Exploded. Okay, that does AoE damage. Now I'm to pull the rifle out. Boom. Now I'm going over here. Now I'm doing a dance with my sword. Just now I'm back to her because the points, the bar for me to use her ability is back now, and you're just using things constantly, moving from her to him, your different attacks, your light attack, your heavy attack, warping to the enemies to do damage. Now you've got the banish thing, which we haven't really talked about, which is sort of like the Bloodborne visceral attack, but you don't have to do a parry to trigger it. You kind of just fill up this bar through doing landing hits like with light attacks and stuff, and he just like uses his like ring thing, his banisher powers or whatever, to like do a huge robust attack on somebody. It takes a lot of their health bar out if it doesn't take them out entirely. So you can use that to sort of get a pause where you're sort of, you got free frames, like you're not taking any damage when you're doing that. It's like a little cutscene almost.
I just showed them. I just show them what it looks like when you do it.
Okay, yeah, and so you're like, basically, as far as I could tell, the best way to experience this combat is to use everything in your arsenal extremely aggressively, so that you're just always on the offense and nobody really ever has the chance to hit you. And I felt like when I was doing that, the combat felt really, really good. Like, it's so fun just going, like, I wasn't even dodging, Lono. Like, I was pressing Y or triangle and going into Antea, and then, like, the damage that you're taking, it doesn't actually affect your protagonist's health bar. It just basically is going to force you out of the Wraith form. So when I knew I was about to tank a bunch of damage, I would go to her, keep wailing on the main guy that I want to take out because he's going to hit me with ranged attacks if I go try to fight the other guys. Get rid of him, he blows up, bunch of damage to everybody else. Now I'm back to red, whirling my sword around, taking everybody out. Like, that aggressive combat, it almost feels like playing Bloodborne or something, and it's really fun the more abilities that you unlock. And it seems like the abilities are sort of focused on that. Like, it's basically, oh, you're doing more damage, and now, oh, if you land this combo, then this next hit does more damage. Or another thing too is, like, I'm at the point where I'm getting abilities that give me my health bar back from defeating enemies, and so that's really good too. Like, I'm doing entire encounters at this point, Lono, on hard, where I'm not even using a health flask.
That would be really helpful, because
really
I've been in a couple of fights where I'm like, good night, like, I'm having to heal so much. It would be great to have something where you're healing naturally.
It feels so good when you just I look down at that health bar like 2-3 minutes into a fight where I feel like I'm getting my ass kicked, and then I'm like, oh, I'm at full health.
Let's talk a little bit about the systems then, because I'm about to show them how you can perform these rituals to either like reveal an echo.
This is the God of War thing, right? Where you like are like, okay, I'm gonna start the mini boss fight. You know, like it's that thing of like.
Well, not always, because sometimes it just reveals an echo, which is like past story. You force a ghost to talk, and then you force a scourge to appear. I didn't see the dialogue for this section, so I actually don't know what it wants me to do because I have it so small on the screen.
This is the middle one.
Yeah, you have to know what to do because it'll waste your resources if you pick the wrong one.
I don't know why they did that. Honestly, that's dumb.
Well, I think it's just because they want you to pay attention. You know, so I'm
come
gonna
on, do it.
I'm gonna bet it's an echo. I'm gonna bet this is an echo.
No. This is top mid, I think. This is,
you think this one was top mid? Did I pick the wrong one?
I'm not sure.
I thought we were trying to get an echo because this is like we're trying to figure out what happened.
I haven't been watching.
Here.
I'm looking at you.
Okay.
I think this is a fight.
No, I messed it up. Yeah, you can definitely pick the wrong ritual, and you have to be paying attention. You have to be listening to the dialogue, which I can't hear the dialogue.
Yeah, guys,
right now.
like if you're not somebody that likes reading or listening to dialogue or getting immersed in a story or whatever, this game's gonna annoy you. Like, this
is a fight. I did not know. Oh, this is gonna be bad because I have to play through OBS. Yeah, this is gonna be a parry fight. There we go.
But if you try using her when you know you just need to take some damage, it's pretty fun. And then there's that L1 move where she like warps over to somebody that's really cool and lets you close distance.
Yeah, I just used that. I'm very hurt. I'm very hurt.
Yeah, I see.
It looks like there's going to be multiple. There's going to be multiple enemies in the area. So when he's doing that, he's trying to go haunt something. And then you wanna like take him out before he does that.
Hey, they're beating up on you.
Yeah, they are. Well, and there's a massive amount of delay because I'm playing through OBS instead of on my monitor, so I'm having a hard time.
But yeah, the combat gets to the point to where you're just whirling around, dispatching enemies, and you're really not giving them a chance to hurt you. And if they are replenishing your health bar when you defeat them. I'm almost at the point now, like where I'm playing on hard, and I'm like, I'm not even using health flasks.
Oh,
like,
I did
it. Nice.
I did it. I'm so good.
Yeah, this game also has like the souls thing of when you're like, yeah, like it has like that feeling like after you defeat an encounter, you fight a boss.
Yeah,
the enemy variety match is not good. I'm gonna be totally honest, it's not good.
It is.
But
it is pretty predictable.
The enemies,
but we got to remember it's a AA game. Like I think they're hitting above their weight class, and so they did stay in a lane with the enemies. But what it does is, I think it leans into what Kirk was talking about. In the early stages, you do feel kind of weak and kind of like, where's all my stuff? And then as you get these other abilities, like you just saw, like she was dashing, she was punching, I was switching back and forth between the two of them. It makes those abilities feel even better because they make you better at the combat.
Like I did that main 10-pole boss twice because I realized my capture didn't work for it. So I reloaded an autosave. By the way, this game is very forgiving with autosaves and manual saves. You get a lot of manual save slots, and it autosaves constantly. So you can always go back if you need to for some reason. Like if you're like, ooh, I didn't like... Maybe I shouldn't have banished that guy. I didn't like that what the narrative happened after that. I feel bad now. You can if you're somebody that like does that, you can go back.
You're scum saving. You're
no,
like...
I actually didn't. I would sit down and be like, I would take these choices very seriously because I'm like, because you're like killing people, man. It's pretty rough. And just as a side note, these stories are like pretty rough too. Like I mentioned domestic abuse. There's also like a cannibalism story. There's also like
the cannibalism one was so cool because like the whole this is something they do such a great job. I'm glad you brought this up. They do such a great job with. You think you know what's going on, and then there's so much more to every little investigation. So little side stories and investigations, they feel dynamic, they feel genuine. It feels like, oh, the story is sort of organically moving along, and there's some crazy crap going on in the world, and you think you know what's happening, and then the more you investigate, you uncover. It makes the side stories, I think quite good. It makes it compelling. It makes you want to investigate more and look into other stories.
Like I just did my first optional one, I think, that was like after it says like, all right, go all the way across the map, like journey to Boston or wherever it is that you're supposed to go. I like went back to town and then like talked to the doctor woman and went on this whole subplot that was like optional, and like I wanted to do that because I'm like, no, I don't want to move on because I want to engage with these characters. Like if you're somebody that likes character-driven narrative and you like engaging with characters and sort of figuring out what their backstory is, and then also influencing things that are going to happen to them, I would compare this like a lot to like the Sherlock Holmes games, where you're going through, you're deducing things about people, you're figuring out, oh, you had an ulterior motive because actually, you know, you were in love with this other person that I didn't figure out until halfway through this subplot. Oh, that makes a lot of sense now why maybe you would have killed this person, or you didn't mean to kill them, it was an accident, but what, you know, it gets very, very layered and there's a lot of intrigue there. So if you're somebody that likes that type of stuff, they've got that here for you, and they've got it here for you with like AA God of War gameplay. And dude, it's hitting for me, man. It's hitting really hard.
Well,
I'm really enjoying it.
And you're really rewarded for exploring. So like minor exploration, you'll go off the beaten path and you'll find resources that you guys may have noticed. I'm picking up flowers and rocks and leather. You will use those resources either in rituals, or you'll use those resources to upgrade your equipment at a save point. So it does really reward you for not... There's a linear thrust to the game. It's very much like you can kind of feel it's pushing you forward. But the world, you said this morning, it's actually quite big. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies to explore.
Can you show them the map?
The thing is I'm 10 hours in.
Yeah, but you can see where the town where you start is if you zoom all the way out.
Yeah, all the way over here.
The map is. Yeah,
it's such
so
a,
all of that
is
is space that you can traverse. So it's very cool. And I've even found like God of War and like Skyrim style like totems that will just like, if you find them, usually they're in like hard to reach places where you have to climb a bunch or do like traversal platforming, that just increase your stats if you interact with them.
Yeah, I'm gonna show them I'm gonna show them an upgrade right now. I've got enough resources to upgrade my wristband. It's pretty straightforward. You just go in and click on it. There's not a lot to it, but it does boost your stats, which is nice. And then you can
I'm just trying to stress like how much this game, like moment to moment, if you're not doing narrative stuff, like if you're just like, I want to go over there, like I'm gonna like you see on the map and you're like, oh, I want to figure out what's over there. There's like this whole space over there that I haven't looked into. How much this game, like traversing and climbing and jumping gaps and putting ropes down and stuff, it copies God of War, like for better or worse. I would say for better. Like if you really like God of War and God of War Ragnarok, and you want to have a giant map that in this case is in the American Northeast to explore in the same vein that you would just going through a God of War game, like this is probably the closest you're gonna get. Like I was trying to think before I came on, like, is there another game that feels this much like God of War to play when you're just walking around the map? And a lot of time I've spent with this game, I'm just doing that. I want to shout out the sound design, because this game has like some of the best sound design in any game whatsoever. I mean, they must have taken good recording equipment and gone out into the woods somewhere and just got hours of audio, because when you're walking around, you can hear, you know, the clicking of birds in the trees, and the wind is wisping. Like the audio is so good when you're just standing in the woods. Like it feels like you were there, like in real life. The audio even more so than the graphics. But a lot of this game is just like peacefully me vibing with that audio and just trying to get from point A to point B and traversing, and it feels very much like God of War, trying to get to like little nooks and crannies and figuring out like, oh, that's actually a totem that I can, you know, put my hand on, and now I've got boost, you know, 1 to all of my stats or whatever. You know, that took me 5 minutes to get over there. That was compelling. That was fun. Or, you know, a lot of chests throughout the world in the same vein. Like I've found a lot of chests. Sometimes they have like an outfit or a ring or something that you can put on as gear. So like there is a lot of exploration here. And you said somebody in chat said that they had played this for 70 hours. I wouldn't be surprised if like 100%ing this game, there is like 70 hours of gameplay here. I really wouldn't be. I think it's a lot more deep than they're even advertising. And I think that's like probably the coolest part of it. Is not only is there this narrative here to go through that whole story and have that experience, but also I think there's a lot of gameplay on offer after that, or even in the middle of that, if you want to, you know, go on a whole other side tangent, for you to just explore this entire map. And like I'm enjoying that a lot. I don't know if it's just like, hitting me in the warm and fuzzy or something, just being out in the wilderness or whatever. But it feels really good.
And it is a $60 game, so this is not a $70 game.
Yeah.
So I think that is going to be a nice price point for it. There's a lot here. There's way more depth than I expected. If my calendar was not so full of games, if I wasn't just like jonesing to, I want to finish Kill the Justice League with my wife. I want to make time for Helldivers 2. I want to try that other game. This morning there were reviews that came out. It's like a Metroidvania with like a really cool art style that came out.
I have a review for that on the channel. What's New Video Games? It's called Ultros.
There you go. Check out Ultros. It's getting rave reviews. reviews. Now this game, Banishers, is getting good reviews. It's landing at an 82 on OpenCritic and a 76 on Meta. So I'd be curious to see. I am seeing some 7s and some 6s. I'm curious why. Maybe they ran into some of the issues I ran into. I do think some of the hitching in performance and some of the clunkiness of combat might turn people off. I got in a couple of fights where I was like, well, that it feels good, and then all of a sudden it doesn't. Like, it is very quick, and that might turn some folks off. But I do think there's a lot of charm and a lot of depth here. The storytelling especially, and the dialogue was the biggest surprise for me. I was not expecting that.
And dark stories, like in the same vein as like The Witcher 3, like dark, layered, complicated narrative stories where people have ulterior motives and they're like, you can perceive sympathy for these people in terms of like what they did and what their motives were, but also it's like they did a ethically gray area type of thing. There's a lot of scenarios like that. It's not just very cut and dry, like, oh, well, this happened and she went here and whatever. Like, it's very much like, oh, there's a lot of emotions that went into this, and gosh, I don't know how I feel about that. What am I gonna do? Like, who am I gonna side with? Like, the way that they do storytelling really makes you think and like engage with it. It forces you to kind of do that. I think that's very good storytelling. I will say for the combat, I'm having a blast with the combat at this point. I just want to reiterate that. I agree. First 5 hours, super frustrating. I wasn't really clicking. I really had to get the hang of it. And once I unlocked some of those abilities, again, I'm not really trying to give the game a pass, because if the combat doesn't feel good for the first 5 hours, like, that's a knock, right? Like, that's not a good aspect of the game if it doesn't feel good for that long. But I will say at this point in the game where I'm at, the combat feels really, really good. And I'm having a lot of fun, and it's very fast-paced and aggressive in terms of how I'm able to dispatch enemies. And when I come upon like that thing where you did the ritual and you summoned like the miniature encounter, like a mini boss or whatever, I get excited because I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. I'm about to kick some ass. Like, you know, like I'm having a lot of fun with the combat at this point. If for anybody that's interested in this game that doesn't want to just drop $60 because of the kind of negatives that we have, I would encourage y'all, like, just go out and get Vampire. Like, there's a lot of similarities here with the systems. Again, it would be like the Origins to Valhalla type of analogy. There's a lot of comparisons with the systems, the combat. It's a very different setting, being in London during like the Spanish flu. So I can't remember what century that's in, but it's kind of like that Victorian type of Transylvanian horror type vibe. It's a very different setting. But if you want to get a feel for, are you going to vibe with this type of narrative? Are you going to vibe with the character systems and the storytelling? Are you going to vibe with the combat? That game is very, very similar to this one in that it was the precursor to this one. So
I'm
that
showing them
so
right
affordable.
now. I'm showing them haunting cases to kind of elaborate on what you're saying. So like, you can get hints through the dialogue, and once you get enough hints, you then learn their intent. So these haunting cases are in here. Like, you can see the ones I've completed, the Trappers, the Heatons. I'm currently working on the New Smith Sisters and the Cook. And this is just in the Dark Woods, right? You can New Edentown, I've got these as well. So the more you play, the more these cases will be in here. And it really does give you just like a great look at all that you've learned, all that you've kind of went through on each character. They've put a lot into this, that if you like this kind of game, I kind of want to transition now. We'll kind of round things out here with recommendation. Yeah. I do recommend it with some of those caveats. Just be warned about some of that clunkiness and some of the performance hitching. I'm hoping that performance stuff can get ironed out. There is a day one patch plan. So
they did say that.
Yeah, a recommendation with a caveat. We are hearing that the price on Steam is only $50. So yeah, console is $60.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I would wholeheartedly recommend it. I'm not sure if I'm still doing a video review. I think I probably will in a couple days here, but I'm not positive. But I'm leaning towards, at first I was thinking like 7.5, 8 when I was playing those first hours that you're sort of in still. I'm leaning towards more of like a 9 right now. I'm really digging this game. I think that if you like these narrative elements, if you like the Sherlock Holmes games, if you like Plague Tale, and then you also enjoy God of War style gameplay, I think that this is a really, really good one for you. You got to be on board for that narrative, because if you're not, it's going to be annoying. There's a lot of it.
Correct.
And it's very good. If you like that sort of thing, you're going to be like, hell yeah, I'm digging this. I want to see what happens next. Like, this is that. It's like a book that you can't put down. But if you find that stuff annoying and you just want good gameplay and good combat and just get that story stuff out of here, I don't know if this game is for you.
I would agree with that.
I would totally recommend it, especially at that $50 price point. But even for $60, I do think it's worth it, because it's not $70, which is nice to see for this. But for people who are on the fence, go pick up Vampire. You can get it for $15 or less, depending on if it's console or Steam. For console, you can definitely get it for $15 at GameStop or like online and get a code or something. Check that game out, because there's a lot of similarities, and if you like that game, this one's definitely going to be worth it for you. Like, when I figured out that this game was the Vampire team, I was so excited to play it, and it has not disappointed me at all when I really liked that first game, and now I really like this one too. And I love the way that they've evolved the formula there and made this more of a sort of polished, approaching AAA type of experience. But you're right, Lono, you can tell that's a AA game. It's like it's as polished as they possibly could have gotten it, which is like, it's still a little bit limited, but the world feels so like real, and like the stories that they're telling feel so real and engaging, and just the exploration, it's compelling. It feels really good being out in the world, and I'm probably gonna I'm gonna get back to it and start playing it after we get off this show.
Well, I think that's a great way to kind of round this out and end this. This is something we're going to do from time to time. Either it's a topic or this review discussion. It makes it really fun, I think, to kind of hit a game back and forth like this, especially when the year is so full. I'm going to always struggle as a live streamer to beat a game before, and even to get early access like this is a little bit rare for me. So really appreciated us sending the codes. And I agree wholeheartedly with the recommendation. Don't get this game because you want like a button masher combat focused game. You got to like the whole package, because the combat, it's fine. It's not this shining star. It's good, but what brings the whole package together is just the excellent storytelling and the tone and the vibe. So
yeah, and just something to note, you pointed this out earlier, they have all those difficulty settings. So if you want to chuck it down to like the casual story mode, I don't think either of us have tried that, but I would assume it's going to be very manageable. If you're just somebody who likes like previous Don't Nod games and these type of storytelling games like Detroit, like Sherlock Holmes, where you want to go through this deductive process, unravel the mystery, unravel the narrative, I would assume that the accessibility here is pretty good as far as putting it on that story mode. So don't be afraid of the game if you're like, oh, the narrative looks interesting, I want to get involved with these stories about these characters and how they're related to each other and their backstory and stuff. I still think that you could pick this up and enjoy it. Just don't put it on normal, because it's gonna be tough if you don't want to do all that with the combat. But yeah, I think it's approachable for somebody that just wants a good narrative out of this.
I completely agree. Like you said, it has like a story feel to it, like a book, like a really good mystery. There's a haunting, scary, spooky, macabre nature to it I think is very well done. They hit a great tone. You can tell there's a lot of passion from the voice acting, sound design, like he said, to the writing. So typically what we do around this time of day, are you going to do something else right now?
I don't have to, no.
I wasn't sure, because sometimes we're going to send you guys to a show that he might be doing with Ginger. We're going to head to the writer's room, which is a segment for paying members and above. So if you're at the $6 tier higher, the writer's room is where we plan the next day's shows. And it's something that we do to end every day. So a great day today, a live stream about the Phil Spencer meeting, and this great little quick, just under an hour stream of just talking through Banishers. Hopefully it gave you guys a really good picture of whether or not you should get the game. And I'm going to post a link in chat. That's where we are headed. And Please join us for a special editions of the official Xbox podcast. We've got a date now for when they're going to talk. They're going to talk on the 15th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Xbox has officially tweeted.
I called it, chat. I told you guys it wasn't going to be today. I told you.
They're making us wait practically the whole dadgum week.
Yep.
Well,
I called it. As J-Dub says, Xbox does not disappoint when it comes to disappointing.
Well, I want to get out of here. I don't want to belabor this video. I want this video to be nice and short for folks looking for the review. So I'm going to start the writer's room segment. Thanks so much for being a writer, actually a Reforge member or higher. We appreciate you guys. We're coming from a brand new idea that we had where we were going to do like a review discussion of Banishers. Make sure and check that out if you missed it. We do recommend it with some caveats, but we do really, really think this is a great game and have really enjoyed our time with it. I'm going to end that previous stream. I'm going to bring people over here that are at the membership or higher. We appreciate you guys tuning in for this. This was just kind of we were DMing